Okay, so we'll come down after 2 of those closing brackets. Okay, let me get you up nice and high there. So there's our metadata block. You can see that. I'm going to make sure we got the screen working well here. Yep. So what would be next? How about supply and balances? Because once again, anyone dealing with our token is going to want to know that it has an initial supply. Total supply is also available, but we'll describe initial supply and balances. Okay. So we start a describe block. Okay. So what do we want to basically say about that? Well, it fundamentally, it mints, and again, remember back to our contract, it mints entire initial supply to 3 people. Nope, to the deployer. You know, if you're investing in a token, that could be a key thing to know about. In that initial deployment, is a bunch of people getting this token? All right. So we're there. So let's set up some constants for this block. Await the deploy function. So once again, we're just saying, hey, hold the horses. All this stuff comes after the deployment or the verification thereof, okay? And of course, we're defining something here. We're making up a word that we've decided, deployer bow, okay? And we're going to say what that means or equals is await DPN balance of, and see that is a function afforded by the ERC contract deployer. Okay, and that should make sense. So, you know, the deployer balance, we're going to say, hey, what this means when you see it in the code is wait for this function to be called from the deployer's address. Check the deployer's balance, okay? And actually, I got ahead of myself a bit. I'm going to go back one line. Let's define the total supply just to verify that, because without that, how do we know that the deployer got the whole supply? Does that make sense? So let's await the DPN total supply. And did we make that up, total supply? No, that's in the contract. That's a function that anyone could call. It's public. Remember that? How we set that up? Okay, so we'll get that total supply. We're checking the deployer's address. And then what should that equal? Well, we should expect that total to equal, and here's where we get to use one of our initial setups here, okay, 1 million. Instead of having to type all this, we can just say 1 million, and it's just cleaner code, okay? And semicolons. This is our final closing bracket. These two are with our describe block, and the describe curly and the it curly, okay? So we start to see that pattern, okay? So save. So just to give a quick review, here's where we are. Supply and balances, okay? Now, bring the terminal up. I'm going to go ahead and clear it. npx hard hat test. Okay, let's get that fixed. Let's see, on line 34. Right here, doggone it. Okay, I'm missing key functional code, okay? So you could think I'm running you in circles. We are going to end up with a test that works, I promise that. But this is kind of reality. I guess it proves I'm not scripting it too much here. All right, let's see where we're at. 2 passing, nice. So we can evaluate here that our ERC20 characteristics are coming through the metadata, and that our initial supply and balances, it mints the entire initial supply to the deployer, okay? Wonderful. All right, so that's 2. Let's see, what else could we test? How about transfers? We need to be able to, in a DePIN ecosystem, move our DPN token around, right? Rewards, even slashing will be important. Let's say that you have a node that isn't doing what it promised to do, or some file storage. Well, slashing could happen to protect the value of others who are bringing that in, okay? And we'll be able to talk more about that. So this time,
I went right into describe transfers. So here's our block. And of course, you could come back later and add all kinds of stuff. But we want to say describe transfers. Well, what does it do? Well, it transfers, balances, and emits transfer. All right. It's an async function. All right. All right. So when events take place, there are emissions of information, and we count on that. We want it to emit or admit, I guess, that it transferred, okay? So once again, we set up our const for this. We're going to involve the DePIN deployer, and let's bring in one of the other accounts. How about Alice? And we're just simply reminding, hey, await deployment before responding about how this test passed. Also, we want to expect that DePIN transfer, which that's DePIN dot transfer, is saying that calling that transfer function, and we're using one of our numbers there, okay? Period, and then 2, emit, and then we're laying out what we want to see with arguments or args. So he's saying, what are you going to use to answer this? The deployer address, Alice's address, and our unit of 100. So when you look here, you know, this await expect DePIN.transfer Alice. Well, the transfer function in the ERC contract it highlights that you would put the address to whom it's going and then the amount, and that's what we're going to have in there, okay? So come back to the line parallel with it, okay? We'll just tab in there. Whoop, there we go. All right, and we want to, I'm sorry, right there, rather. Expect, await, DePIN, balance of, well, where? Oh, at Alice's address. Not Honduras, 100. Okay. To equal 100, okay? And so we're wanting that to take place for one thing. And then secondly, if we didn't check the deployer address, how do we know that it really went from one to the other? You know, we're just clarifying the balance. The balances should be where they should be. Okay, so the deployer address, we want it to equal okay. Take a close look at this here. So there's our describe block currently. Okay, so let's get our semicolons here. Save. And here I'll show you a little tip. You know, here's where we ran our last test. If you just arrow up, you get that same command again. We'll see how we do. All right, we've got 2 passing, those initial 2, and then 1 failing. It's showing us, hey, your latest test has an issue. Let's get this fixed, okay? Here I see what it is. It's an underscore. 1, if you come up here, 1 million we have defined, right? So it's saying the code, that's why, get back to that type checking, right? Remember our config files? It's saying, nope, nope, nope. No, you asked me to be real particular. So that is not what I see. And so, of course, we're looking for 1 million minus, that is a minus sign, that 100, right? So we've got a little math there, all right? And so arrow up one more time. Let's give it a try. Eureka, okay? We have our metadata, our initial supply and balances, and we are transferring in a way that makes sense. We transferred Alice 100 tokens, and it makes perfect sense that the deployer then, who received the initial supply, would be minus that 100, okay? And so just saving a lot here. We're doing just great. Let's keep going. What else could we test? We don't want to be in a world where we can just promise anything, right? So we could add, in fact, let's continue in this same describe block of transferring balances and emitting transfer. What's another thing that could happen? So we just come under the 1 curly brace there. Well, here's something that's important. It should revert when the sender lacks enough or sufficient balance, okay? Doesn't that make sense? Certainly does, okay? Because we're just looking for
is this everything operating normal? Okay. All right. And we'll just keep these semicolons coming here. It reverts. So what could we say about that? Well, let's set up our con. So we could almost think of this now as like who's the, it's like SNL, who's in this skit? Okay, well, DPN's gonna be in it, Alice is gonna be in it, and let's bring Bob in. He can be handy. And we're just once again saying, hey, await that deployment before judging or ruling on this test, okay? And let's set up a scenario where Alice starts with 0. And how can we do that? We can just say await, expect dpn.connect with who? With Alice. For what purpose? To transfer. Transfer where? Bob's address. And then we'll just do a 1N. Oop. And there, okay. And we are expecting this to be reverted. All right, so let's check that out. We are saying, hey, Alice, try to send Bob some tokens when you have none. And it should indeed not work. Come down under 1, curly bracket. And what if we said it reverts on transfer to the 0 address, okay? Let's see, were you able to even see that? I hope you were. Okay, so this is our next unit, okay? In case you missed it, I'm not going to go back and retype it. I'm just going to put it here. You can catch up. A note about 1N, that's just a big integer. It just is meaning, hey, we mean 1, literally 1, and that's about all that means. It's a big integer. Okay, and let's get a semicolon there. Let's do one more addition, or let's check this rather. We haven't checked it yet. So, ooh, let's see. See, it's showing me a key error there. Maybe you caught it. Good job if you did. All right, this is just real coding with you in the moment. An arrow up. Try it again. Oh, we got more issues. Do I have more than one of those? Here's another one. Oh dear. All right, sorry folks. Okay, and now we have our 5 passing, okay? Just look at what you're looking at here. Yeah, so you can see those. Let that be up there for a minute. All right, so there's our 5th passing unit.